In a world that is robbing dudes of their dudeness, three normal, everyday, middle-aged dudes are taking a stand for dudes everywhere. Join us as we talk about life as a dude in today's world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Dudefinity Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things dude. My name is Sterling, and with me, as always, People Magazine's three-time Sexiest Man of the Year and Emmy Award-winning daytime actor, Jordan.
Me? I'm that guy? Oh, hell no. Hell no. No, thanks, Sterling. I appreciate how you always build me up, as always, and just make me feel like I am the sexiest man and the guy who can do anything. You know, that's why we've been friends for so long. It's really gone a long way in our relationship, the way you build my confidence up, man. Really
Well, that's
appreciate
what I'm here for.
Appreciate it, brother. So what's going on in your world?
Not much, man. Kid stuff, work stuff. We just had a little crash out with my daughter because she's acting a fool at school, but we handled that. Yeah. How about you? What's been going on in the Jordan world?
Year-end grind with work, of course, the push, keeping me busy. Wife's in the thick of the school year, so she's getting a little worn out, kind of time change is kind of set in. A little bit of seasonal depression always comes with closing up the pool for the year, and the sun going away. So, there's a little bit going on there. And then also have had a crash out recently with my daughter. I got to tell you, 7th grade is weird. They're just smelly, weird, don't know who they are or where they fit, gangly and awkward. And you just wait, man. I'm telling you, the drama's real. The limit testing is even more real. And being a father of an only child who happens to be a daughter, there's a lot of some of this I have to own because I give in a little too easy, but the button pushing is just, it's a lot right now. And then, excuse me. I'm dying.
You okay over there?
You're going to watch me choke on our podcast. That'll go viral. 3rd episode. Bang. Well, that guy didn't make it. Here, Alex.
Podcast ends with choking death of host.
No, it's just real, man. Life's kind of, it's all good stuff. It's all stuff that I'm built to deal with, but it still doesn't make it fun to deal with. It's like I told my daughter this morning in the middle of the heat of kind of going through the discussion of what is going on and how to navigate it. I just told her, I was like, I don't want to do any of this. It's not fun for me. I was like, I don't want to be hard on you. I don't want to be difficult, but unfortunately it's my job to teach you actions have consequences. And hated hearing that when I was a kid, so I know she was looking at me thinking the same things I was thinking in my head when my parents were hard on me as a child. So I know where she's at, and it's hard to watch because now I'm on the other side correcting it.
So I saw this study that I thought I wanted to ask you this question, see what you thought of this. So it's a study out of the UK, and they what they did was they put mom, dad, and baby in bed together. Okay. And when the baby cried, mom would wake up. And obviously dads would wake up sometimes, but generally speaking, it would wake that needy cry from the baby would wake mom. Can you guess the sound that they found made dads wake up the most?
Why do I feel like it's probably like a baby farting or something?
No. No.
No, seriously, in all seriousness, no.
The rustling of leaves and branches.
Yeah, I get it. I remember when we first brought Elle home from the hospital, and I was in bed, and my wife had gotten her asleep. She was in the bassinet next to the bed, and I was fortunate that it happened to be summertime, so my wife would get up with her in the middle of the night during the work week and everything. And I remember there was just one night that I was just sleeping so uneasy during those first few weeks that we had her home, and my wife had just gotten her down, gotten her in the bassinet. I was sound asleep in the bed, and I woke up, or so I thought. I was having a dream that she fell out of the bassinet, and I woke up running around the bed to try to catch her. And just as I was reaching for her, my wife put her hand up on my chest and said, "If you wake that baby up, I'll kill you." And I woke up to that, and so it was very interesting, like, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know why I had that dream, but it was just my wife was ready to kill me if I woke that little girl up, I can tell you that.
See, we talk a lot about protection, provision, all the stuff that the men are supposed to be doing. Uh, and I just thought that was just an interesting
It's a very interesting study,
example
man.
of, yeah, I thought it's an interesting, exercise in the, at least in terms of like evolution or
Yeah.
creation or however if you want to say it, the roles of of parents that are just kind of inherently ingrained in us. I just thought it was kind of neat.
Well,
Uh,
one thing that I think is interesting that I just want to stop on for a second. Kind of curious your thoughts on this. So, throughout life, you get all kinds of advice. You get advice as you're going through high school and sports, and as you're getting married, there's life advice, and as you become a new parent, people are, oh, do this, do that, try this. But there's all those unspoken things that nobody ever thinks to tell somebody, that
that's
just kind
awesome.
of come up that you realize as you're going. And one of the things I realized very quickly is I went from being a very heavy sound sleeper before my daughter was born to waking up at
Mhm.
the rustle of leaves and sticks. And I don't know if there's an inherent like switch that happened of protection, like in my underlying like makeup and you know what I mean? Like I don't know, but it's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden I slept sound, and then all of a sudden I wake
Mhm.
up to everything. And the
That's
correlation to it
interesting.
was I was a parent, or I wasn't a parent, and then I became a parent. And so
That's
maybe it's
really
just me,
interesting.
but it was just interesting observation that I went through of I wake up to everything. It's my job again, protect and provide, right? It's my job in
Mhm.
the middle of the night when the house is on fire, so to speak, to be the one to be the firefighter. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if there's something to be said for we know the instinctual side of being a parent versus
Mm.
versus a cognitive side of being a parent sometimes. But it was just a really unique thing that happened.
Well, I often think about, how much of what we do is really based on, just nature.
Yeah,
It's just and you don't I assume that a lot of this stuff is just things that are, woven into your psyche, and you don't really think about the hows
exactly.
or the whys. It's just what you do.
Exactly, it just kinda happens and, you react. It's kinda like that adage, "Well, kids don't come with a manual," and, there's no parenting book to teach you how to be ready for this. Well, it's true.
So today's podcast, our premise is boundaries, and this all kind of stemmed from a conversation that Jordan and I had, where we had some choice words about some life events, and we thought that, you know what, boundaries would be a great thing to talk about.
That's an understatement, man. Let's just hope that no one in my family's watching this podcast this week.
Well, we don't have to get into the details, but we
No,
can
but
we can
it's
talk about
important
it
to
as a
get into
general
them.
thing.
It's
Yeah,
important to get into them because if we're
sure.
gonna talk about things, not specifics or people or things like that, they'll know who they
Right.
are, they'll know the situation, but it's important to get in that stuff because I think that one thing that gets lost on us as children becoming adults is
Mhm.
when we're kids, you're kinda told who to sit at the table with.
Right.
You're kinda told, "Hey, this table is full of these people, and these are the people that you should be with." Your parents already have their people, and those people become your people, whether it's cousins, whether it's aunts and uncles, whether it's grandparents. But guess what, guys? They don't have to be your people as an adult. They don't have to sit at your table as an adult. It doesn't matter who is at that table as long as
Mhm.
they respect you and they don't cross your boundaries. And it's okay for you to put boundaries on who sits at your table. I will tell you this, I've gotten older. I've had a lot of friends throughout my life. My circle's gotten smaller as I've gotten older, but it's because I choose who sits at my table every day, you know? So, um, who do you wanna eat dinner with? I don't know, you know, but make sure they're people you like. Don't just accept the fact that, you know, if your mom did something to you or your dad did something to you and you haven't resolved it, it's unresolved, don't just let them sit at your table unless you resolved it. I mean, that just makes it uncomfortable for everybody, and it's gonna fester and blow up. I'm a firm believer in kinda establishing clear boundaries in life, and then if somebody crosses them, unfortunately, they don't really need to be inside your boundaries anymore. They can be outside them permanently.
So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
So when you're setting a boundary, whether it be with friends, family, relationships, wife, girlfriend, whatever, how do you make the decision, or how do you maintain yourself as far as enforcing those boundaries and making sure that if they are crossed, that either there's a discussion about it, or if you had to, you remove that person from your table, as it were.
Yeah, I think the way you deal with boundaries, everybody's gonna deal with them a little differently. There's obviously healthy and unhealthy ways to deal with them. For me, you've known me for a long time. I'm blunt. I'm very blunt about how I feel. And so I establish those boundaries loud and clear.
Hmm.
And then if someone crosses them, then there's no question of where that came from, or why I'm upset or why I'm frustrated and there is a discussion. It depends on how bad the boundary is that they broke. Sometimes they get removed from the table.
Hmm.
It just depends. I mean, it's just every situation's different. Life is situational. So, and you got boundaries with different people. You have different boundaries with different people, like with you. I've known you my whole life. I've told you since the 7th grade that I can't be gay with you. It's just not my thing. I've tried to establish this boundary since we were wee lads. And every time you try to cross it when you come visit me, I have to reestablish it again. I don't have that boundary with anyone else.
So you're just singling me out. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I am.
You
Because you're the
don't have
only
that
one trying
boundary
to
with
climb
anybody
behind
else.
me and spoon.
Anybody else,
You're
you'll
trying
get
to spoon me when I
the.
sleep, man. It's
Well,
not
no,
comfortable.
that's not what you said. You said you don't have that boundary with anybody else. So you're telling me you'll just naked spoon with whomever comes your way, except
I
me?
mean,
I'm
yeah,
hurt.
pretty much. Yeah, a little bit. You should be. You should
I'm
be
hurt.
hurt. But I've told you no for years. No, I just think, here's my question to you about boundaries. Okay. So there's almost a stigma surrounding boundaries.
Hmm.
You set a boundary for yourself. You don't
Hmm.
want people to cross that line.
Hmm.
And your boundary might not be important to somebody else, just like my
Sure.
boundary might not be important to somebody else. So it's almost, well, he's just being a jerk, like,
Hmm.
or he no, when you say
Discounts their
no to
words.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so how do you how do you overcome when people press on you? Because setting boundaries isn't hard for us. It's hard for the people that we put them in place for a lot of times.
Hmm.
And so when the pressure point comes from the people that you set the boundaries with, how do you then enforce that and still healthily have that relationship on the back end? Because some people react poorly to that boundary setting.
Yeah. I think that a lot of this is one. I don't think most people like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And that's how they react to that sort of thing. So say I'll give you an example. This is and I don't mean to like immediately go into a relationship thing, but I think it's the example. I was kind of having some shower thoughts about this podcast, and it's the first thing that popped into my head. So my girlfriend and we have an agreement that neither one of us hangs out with friends of the opposite sex one on one. Now that's a boundary, and that's a boundary we've agreed upon. And if that boundary got crossed, we'd have to have a fairly significant conversation, because we've said that's what we're going to do to respect the relationship. And it's as an example, if I did that, I would expect her to be upset with me because we have that established boundary. So
Yeah.
I wonder if there's And there's a lot of stuff you shouldn't have to say to somebody. Like, "Don't steal my lawnmower, bro." You've broken a boundary. Like, you know? But, eh,
I'm glad that cutting your grass is the first thing that came to mind, you old man.
yeah, you should be one to talk. Well, me and the neighbors all rented a cedar for a week. we got a we've got a group text about it. Dude,
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Out there
I just picture just a mountain of you guys like going house to house, mind you, not doing it alone, but going house to house, and there's a line of dudes in jean shorts and New Balances watching one dude see his lawn, and then they bring it down to the next one.
one, jorts do not get worn on this body. I don't care if they're in style or not. No jorts here. That's the
Yeah,
first thing.
you can exchange the jorts for your cell phone and in a carrier on your hip.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. No, but can you just picture us on that riding aerator, me standing on it with like four other dudes just riding from each house, like we're here. Not
God,
what happened
God.
at all. And
But yeah,
yeah,
it's that, and I think especially in relationships with people you're dating and family, like kids, I think the biggest thing is having established those boundaries ahead of time and having them being set and very clear so that everybody's on the same page. Because I think if you try and hold somebody to a boundary that they're not necessarily aware of, you're again, there's you shouldn't be cheated on, that sort of stuff. You shouldn't be Nobody should hit you. They should treat you kindly. That's all inherent and I think very obvious. But if there's other things that, and expectations, boundaries that you have with somebody and they know that's the expectation, they know that's where your boundary lies, then I think it's important to set that out there.
so you're gonna find this interesting, and I know what you're gonna say in reaction to this, but just let me get it all out, okay?
All right.
So establish boundaries, right? Well, my wife and daughter and I have established boundaries. Okay.
Hmm.
We also have boundaries for the individual,
Hmm.
the couple,
Sure.
mother daughter,
Right.
father daughter, and then the family unit.
Okay.
And within those boundaries, like, for example, if we go out to dinner with somebody and it's the three of us and some of them, we have a safe word, a family word that
Mhm,
says, "Hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm uncomfortable. It's not really my thing."
mhm.
And no matter what it is, we leave and we adhere to the boundary because the boundary we set for our family is this word. If it is used, we operate within the boundaries,
Yeah.
and we get back to safe place. So, you know, um, we safe word, so to speak. I know where your head goes when I say safe word. I don't like that your head goes there, but I know it does. But we do have a family safe word.
Okay. Well, it's like my head didn't go anywhere. It's still sitting right here.
I just know how you are with your 20-year-old girlfriend and your, four other people calling you once a week kind of thing. Hot on the dating scene.
Oh, well, that'll have to be bleeped out.
Hot on the dating scene of New England.
Uh, Northeast.
Northeast.
Anyways, um, all right. So,
Hey, so I have something fun I want to try.
okay.
And I'm just
We'll see
curious.
if
I mean,
it's fun or not.
I know we're talking about boundaries. All right, I want you
Sure.
to touch your nose. Now I want you to slap yourself across the face. No, I'm joking. That is not the game that's fun. I wanted to play two truths and a lie. Just kind of curious when it comes to boundaries.
Okay.
Give me two truths surrounding boundaries that you've set for yourself and a lie. And I'll see if I can figure out which boundary is a lie and which two are true.
Okay. Let's see. Um,
Would have been easier if I said Mary Kill, but I mean, we
Well,
can't do that.
yeah, you put me on the spot, my dude. It's not so much the not thinking of it's the one thinking of the lies. Okay, so uh, we don't partake in any mind altering substances when my daughter is home. We I'm not allowed, or I don't allow myself to spend money on myself until it's like at the end of right before the I get my next paycheck. Or I don't let anybody cook without discussing in my house without discussing it first about what is going to be cooked.
Oh god, that's absolutely true. That one is.
That one
Um,
is
I'd say the first one's true. The second one is the first one's true, 100%.
okay.
I'd say the third one is true, and I would say the middle one is not.
No, it's the middle, the first two. The third one's
Okay.
still high.
All right. All right. I
What
just know
about
how you
you?
are about your food, man. You're kind of
Oh,
very
yeah.
like you're very particular about what gets cooked and what is cooked.
Yeah, for me, I she can cook whatever she wants. If it's one of those situations where I'm working that day and she's not, you generally cook, so I'm not gonna tell her what to make.
Interesting. So, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Good. Kind of
What?
put you on the spot. No. So here's a question for you about boundaries. Okay. So
Okay.
you have a unique perspective right now,
Mm-hmm.
and a divorce, as a father that's recently going through a divorce
Sure.
with a girlfriend and a child that lives with you part of the time.
Half. Let's establish that
Yeah.
now.
Half the
There's no
time. Okay.
questions. Yeah.
So how do you establish, because I feel like there's rules that happen when your daughter's around,
Mm-hmm.
and there's things that not, kind of like the psychoact, what you were just talking about a second ago.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and that includes like alcohol
Yeah,
or
right.
anything. More
Anything mind
specifically
altering.
talking about alcohol.
Yes.
But
But if that is, how do you navigate making sure that your daughter
mm-hmm.
operates in the boundaries and that the boundaries are set as a single father in today's world dating somebody that you now live with?
Sure.
How do you set the boundary to your significant other of being like of how you have to be a father first a lot of times?
Well, so again, I'm gonna
That's a
be
tough one.
you're probably not gonna like this answer because it's not gonna be a very good one in terms
Uh-huh.
of like boundary setting. So really the only boundary I had with my girlfriend was we need to be together for 6 months before you meet my kid. I have no desire to put somebody in and out of her life, and
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
her half the time. So half the time when I don't have her, we can hang out and do all that stuff. But when I do, that's just not going to be a thing. So that
Right.
was the boundary I set. As far as my daughter went in the relationship, which my girlfriend was perfectly respectful of. In fact, she was excited to meet her and couldn't wait to meet her and all that good stuff. But that goes into picking a partner that has the same, at least a lot of the same priorities as you do. So, it's never been an issue of me having to tell my girlfriend, well, these are the rules with my daughter, and this is what. No, she kind of really took to it very naturally.
I guess
Like it's
so.
never been
I
a
guess there's no like established rules there, but I guess my question more so is, how do you handle it when things come up? Because I would imagine that your daughter is probably kicking and screaming a little bit at times when she's being parented by someone new,
well, yeah, yeah,
and the
and
boundaries of that.
well, so here's the thing. It's all kids limit test, and the times that I have been at work or something like that, and it's just been my girlfriend and my daughter in the house. Sometimes my kid likes to limit test and likes to push and see what she can get away with, but
Sterling
well,
Jr. Oh, sorry, I had something in my throat.
hmm?
Sterling Jr.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Come
100%.
on.
There's zero doubt
Come on.
about that. But
Hey, man, your dad would have gotten a trip out of her.
it's one of those things. She defers to me. That's what
Yeah.
she's done the whole time. My kid is acting like this. Should call me and say this is what she's doing, and a lot of times it's just like, okay, well, when I get home, there's going to be consequences for what you're doing right now, and as long as there's consistency, so she knows she doesn't get away with stuff when it's just the two of them. It's not a time for her to be able to get away with things. And it took a few goes for that to work itself out, but now it's a non-issue. But I think it's like that with, and this, it's every kid's like that. And then, you know, she's 6 now, so I'm sure in 4 or 5 years we'll be fighting it out again with this sort of thing, because that's what they do.
Next thing you know, she's in 7th grade, awkward, gangly, and full of piss and vinegar,
Right.
and a ton of friends, and the friends matter more than what you have to say. Oh, just wait, buddy. There's gonna be a whole slew of stuff coming your way.
Well, and I don't doubt that, I've never been, you know, d I've never been under the illusion that that wasn't gonna be
Yeah.
then.
It's just no, I'm just living it right now, so I might be a little crass about it, but, it is what it is. So I have a question about something else, not boundary related. So we're gonna
Okay,
switch it up for a second. Kinda
okay,
wanna talk about this for a little bit because it's very interesting. Some numbers for you, okay?
mhm,
So I'm gonna talk about the Boston Celtics for a minute.
okay,
Boston Celtics have one of the best defenses in the NBA
mhm,
without Jason Tatum on the floor.
sure,
The Boston Celtics, typically when you have a top 5 team in the NBA,
mhm,
your point differential is usually somewhere between 8 and 12, between your defense and your offensive allowances.
yeah,
Um, the Celtics are 5, so we're not a top tier team. We're our offensive output is getting what it can. Um, we have Jason Tatum, who is a net above replacement of 13.1 points a game.
mhm,
So if Jason Tatum was on this team right now, even with the averages, we would have a point differential of about 14 and a half
okay.
because of his 13 delta and the points over replacement. Is this a championship roster without its star?
No, I don't think so. I
I
don't
don't
think
hear
they're
it.
I don't think they're built for a playoff run. I think if they're smart, you're going into
It's
probably the
development
deep.
mode, right?
Huh?
It's development mode right now, right?
It's development mode.
It's
And
developed Shireman, it's developed Jordan Walsh, it's developed Kata, it's developed Hugo and Luca, and right? Like that's kind of where we're at.
I honestly, I would like to see them try to work to get into the top 5 in the
Lottery.
and I'll tell you why. This supposedly is gonna be one of the deepest draft
Oh, it's deep
classes.
as it's deep as all get out.
And, I was reading an article not, I think yesterday or the day before, talking that uh, Cooper Flag may have fallen to like 5 or 6 if he was
Yes.
in this draft
Yep.
class.
Yep.
So, I think this is not a championship roster. You're
I don't
not
think we have a
necessarily.
championship coach. I'm gonna make a bold statement. I don't think
Is
we
it
have a
the same
championship
statement
coach.
you make about Joe Mazzulla almost every week?
Yep, but I'm gonna make it publicly today. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is a good coach. I
I know you
I
don't.
I I think Joe Mazzulla is a great guy to have on your bench. I think he's a great number 2 coach.
Mhm,
But I mean, just look at his plays coming out of timeouts.
mhm,
Inbound plays are terrible.
mhm.
Um, we're s- we're motivating people by playing war music for 10 minutes, like war sounds in the locker room, and like guns flying for 10 minutes. Like he's a little crazy to me, man. He's a
Well,
little eccentric.
I'm gonna say this. I do agree that he is eccentric, but you got to look at some of the things like Phil Jackson did with the Bulls and the Lakers.
I
He
know,
did some weird stuff,
I
but
know.
they won titles.
But
And
Joe
here's the
hasn't, in my opinion, earned the
I
ability to do that.
I hear what you're saying. They still got a ring. So until you
They got a
have to
ring.
kind of
Let's
give
be
the guy a
real, man.
benefit of the you got to
Let's
give
be
the guy
real.
you
They
got to
did
give the
not
guy
win that ring because of Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla just
I'm
happened to
not
be there. It's like Steve Kerr's first year coaching the Warriors. They won a championship. They That's the same team that won 55 games a year before with Mark Jackson, and they fired him, but they still would have won a championship. I guarantee it, because their window was now.
Well, that may be your opinion on it, but you've got to consider what kind of shakeup happens when you remove a head coach. It's not just like slotting in a player. You're changing the entire philosophy offensively and defensively of the team. So in my opinion, until they under full health lose, then you can't really do anything with Joe.
All right, so then explain to me this, okay? So you had Joe Mazzulla, you had Sam Cassell, and you had Charles Lee.
Okay.
Same team comes back last year.
Uh-huh.
We return the same players. Everything looks good. What was missing? Charles Lee. Our defense slid almost 11 and a half points a game, our
Yeah.
defensive efficiency. We we put ourselves in a situation where we weren't playing well. And then you look at Charlotte and you see that they're not a great team,
Mhm.
but they're in every darn game they play. And they're scrappy. You know what I mean? And I just, as much as I like Joe Mazzulla, or don't like Joe Mazzulla, because I think Joe Mazzulla is an interesting guy. I love some of the comments he makes. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want the target on my back. It's right between my eyes. Like, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? I love that he embraces stuff, and I think that the players like him. But I think last year showed me more than ever that he is not a good X's and O's coach. He lost his X's and O's, and the team slid.
You know, so having played a significant amount of basketball,
Wait, you
I
played
can
basketball?
I did. I can
Oh,
tell you a couple things. The first thing I can tell you is defense is 90% effort. You have to have talent, but defense is effort. And you and I both know that this is a team that historically, for years, has had a tendency to let go of the rope. They take their foot off people's necks, and it hasn't mattered which coach has been there. Brad Stevens is probably one of the smartest basketball minds that's in the league right now, and he couldn't do it with them with multiple talented rosters. But it was the same, and you shake your head, but it was the same thing. They were saying the same stuff. They
no,
take their foot off
I,
people's neck, they let go
I'm
of the
shaking my
rope.
head because I think it's indicative of today's culture and the athlete, but that's a topic for a whole different conversation.
And that's kind of where I'm headed with this. I wonder how much of how okay, think of it this way. You've got an entire team of guys who not necessarily the whole team, but multiple players, the core, who played on a championship roster 2 seasons ago. They
Yeah.
played not as well, but they were right in it um, last year until Tatum got hurt. And now you've lost your best player, your cornerstone of your offense and
Even
your
last year, though, it didn't feel like we were in it before Tatum got hurt.
I did
It seemed like things were off
well,
all
I'll tell
season.
you this, it felt like the year they lost to
Golden
the
State.
no, it didn't feel like that. It felt like the year they lost to Miami in the Eastern Conference
Oh, yeah.
Finals.
Yeah.
It felt
Yeah.
like they were doing everything they could to lose. So this year, I just wonder, how much of this is a bunch of guys who are phoning it in because they know they don't have real championship aspirations, and they may publicly say that they do. But these are all professionals, they're
Well,
all
you say
professional
that,
players.
Caver, but we're fighting night in and night out, and we're a great defensive team based on effort. I actually feel like the thing that we're doing right now is fighting harder. But the thing that's killing us is, and I know where you've stood for years on the Jason Tatum versus Jaylen Brown situation, and
Hmm.
at times you've been big on Jaylen Brown being the guy.
Hmm.
We've been through that. He had 8 turnovers last night. He's averaging 4.5 turnovers a game with a higher usage.
I'm going to tell
He
you, well, here's the thing. I have never said that Jaylen Brown. Not once have I ever said that Jaylen Brown could be the best player on a championship
he
team.
can't be. I mean, there's
That's
no
never
way.
come out of my mouth. I
But
think.
we're seeing it play out that it's solidifying right now, in my
Well,
opinion.
I mean, to an extent. I mean, the guy's still averaging close to 30, and he's still offensively
But
efficient.
usage is also up.
Well, his usage is up, but he's also still efficient. And I always look at efficiency, shooting efficiency, as more important than.
But when you're talking net efficiency as a player, Jaylen Brown has historically taken a back seat to
Mm,
Tatum because he's taken a front seat on defense on the best on-ball player on the other team.
yeah.
I mean, our best ball player on the other team. Um, so I get that your delta on offense is going to suffer a little bit there. Like, for sure, your efficiency is going to go down because you're exerting better effort guarding Luka and, night in and night out. I get that. Where I'm struggling with Brown right now is his offensive efficiency's gone up. His turnovers are just so bad. And when you look at if you look at the net efficiency, like, he does all these things well, but then you start taking away from it because of the turnovers. And it's
Well,
like,
so think of it this way, though. Here's the
oh,
thing.
man.
Here's the thing. You've got a guy who's no longer on, not playing this season, who is a bona fide stat stuffer, and moreover, he
He's a point
draws the
guard.
defense.
Well, he's a point guard. I mean,
Well, he draws the defense.
yeah.
Who are you really worried offensively beating you on the Celtics?
Jalen, that's it.
And that's the point. So of course he's gonna have more attention
Yeah.
on him. Again, I'm not saying that I don't think either one of them without the other one is good enough to win a title. I
Me
don't think
either.
you can.
Me
I don't think you
either.
can separate the two. Like,
No.
I think Tatum doesn't have that dog in him. I think he shies away from big moments. I think he gets too frustrated, complains to the refs too much. You know, I just
Lazy at
don't.
the rim.
He's lazy at the rim.
Too many
He has gotten
ISO
better at that.
sidestep threes. Like,
He has a hard time finishing at the rim sometimes. Like I say, he does so many things well. And this is
but you
like,
say all that, but then you look at throughout history, the top guys under 27, and he's at the top of the list.
again, well, that's what I was just about to say.
And it's like,
I say all of
is it
I
because he's not flashy that we think that? Like,
No, I mean, it's a lot of the things that you watch him do. You look at that, the year that they got their asses handed to them by Golden State. Where was Jason Tatum?
watching
Where was
Steph
he?
Curry play basketball.
Watching Steph Curry play basketball and missing shots. You look at the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals. Jalen outplayed him. He was more efficient. He
Well,
did
there's a
more
reason why
things.
Jalen was the MVP.
Well, there's a reason. And there'll be people who will go, well, like their averages were pretty good. Blah, blah, blah. Tatum had a really good game in garbage time where they were
Yeah.
blowing them out, and that's when he came alive. And who's hitting big shots? Again, this is not me bashing on Jason Tatum. I'm
Honestly,
not.
Derek White
It's
was
like,
the one hitting the big shots.
he hit a lot of big shots. I'm not bashing on Jason Tatum. I'm
No,
not saying that he's a
he
bad
doesn't
player
have the
at
switch,
all.
man.
I think Jason Tatum before this injury was a top 10 player easily. He was in the realm of superstars. I think the problem with Jason Tatum is what you really need is you need a combination of the two of them, 100%. You need Jason Tatum's body, Jaylen Brown's athleticism, and Jason Tatum's basketball IQ, Jaylen Brown's dog, and
Which
you'd have an
means
all-time great. But that's not a
100%.
thing.
But that's where coaching comes along too, right? Like, I think some of this, Brad's a soft coach. Brad's never been a hard kick you out of practice, make you run laps coach. He's just not that guy. And Joe Mazzulla's not that guy. I know you're going to think I'm nuts, but they need that mentality that the 08 Celtics had, that Mbutu Celtics kick each other out of practice, get in a fight. Like, have Kevin Garnett come be on the bench.
They don't have that guy. They don't. Even as good as Brown is in terms of mentality and being willing to take the big shot and being not shying away from the big moments.
The only alpha we got on the team, bro, is Peyton Pritchard, and he's too small to be the alpha.
Man, I think if this team had Ime Udoka, if he could have managed to keep his in his pants,
I've been saying
be in a great spot.
The problem is that it was either him or Al, and they weren't going to get rid of Al.
Yeah. Well,
again, Al's wife blew the whistle, man. Like, it is what it is,
Well, that's what I mean. It's not here nor there. It's just that's the reality. But I think as a coach, he fit this team better than
he got more out of them.
He got a lot out of them. Like Brad got a lot out of them statistically. He was
Brad also was a basketball teacher, and he taught them the game of basketball in the NBA. And how to play with pace and things like that. But now you got, I personally think there's a coach floating around that is absolutely the perfect fit for the Boston Celtics. I thought they should have scooped in this last offseason and said, see you later. And I think he would have taken the job. It's close to home. I think it's somebody that's championship caliber coach. I think it's somebody who's a little bit of and that's a good thing to have as a head coach. And I want Eric Spoelstra. That would be my number one pick, but it ain't him. But number two, Mike Malone, man. I'd be all over trying to get Mike Malone in Boston. I think your bench gets better for it. I think your team gets better. The team's deeper. He knows how to win. He's coached at a high level for many years. And he's coached some superstars. And we need to understand that Mazzulla could only take him so far, and he might have taken him where you can take him.
Well, so here's the thing. Again, it is not just changing coaches is not.
I know.
It's not just swapping out a player.
I know.
It's a big deal, and I don't think they're gonna move on from Mazzulla until he gives them an actual reason.
But then think about this. You just said that Ime should have been the coach for this team. Should still be the coach of this team. Okay. Why is it? Why? Because of the culture that Ime brought. Ime brought a different culture. It's like the Patriots. Perfect example. Crosstown sports team, right? Patriots get Gerard Mayo, or they go from Bill Belichick. They go to Gerard Mayo, a former coach, or former player. He's a first-year coach. Culture goes to absolute. He's on the plane. He's playing cards with the guys. He's rolling dice. He's one of the guys. He's still a player.
Right.
They bring in Mike Vrabel. Now they're 9-2 and top of the league because of a culture change. Not because of players, but because of a shift in focus. And I think the guys are at a point.
I don't think that has anything to do
with Drake May a little bit.
Drake May, like you're glossing over some things here, but
but the defense, the whole thing is different. The whole watching the team, the way they speak, the way they act, the way they carry themselves, the expectations, and I think the thing for me with Joe is, if we want to take advantage of the title window that we have, if Tatum comes back the way he is, I genuinely feel that we have a Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr moment on our hands. Because although I thought the Warriors could win that next year, regardless of who was the coach, I don't think they would have had the dynasty that they became without Steve Kerr stewarding the ship. And I think we've got an opportunity to compete for another 5 to 6 years, but we need it here. And we need someone who's a little more in your face, kind of push and get the most out of these guys. Because I'll tell you right now, you know who's going to react the best to that is Jalen.
Well, yes, and but Jalen also really, like I say,
Tatum will just drink in the moment.
I think this is all a moot point because they're not going to.
I know.
They're not going to do a thing. They're going to, like I say, I think before the trade deadline,
something, because we can't let Simons come to the team and not trade him.
He's getting
traded.
I think anybody with almost any worth is getting traded. They're going to do whatever they can to get into the top 5 in that draft. I think they'll keep.
Got to go.
Personally, I think it's going to be Derek White. I think they're going to unload that contract.
I've been telling you Derek White needs to go for a while. I like him, but he's too inconsistent.
Well, and again, he's a great glue guy. He's a guy who's going to do a little bit of everything. I think he's fantastic. But you've only got such a window with Tatum and Brown.
Well, and that's the thing with the expectation also makes big threes hard. The new CBA, you got a big 2, and then everybody else is pretty much a role player. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it does make it hard, but I do think you're right. I think Derek White needs to roll. I know. Next week, I'll bring you a picture of your mom, and we'll talk about it. Let's be realistic about who we are, Caber.
That's. But I do agree. Like,
oh no, you're gonna have to cut this out. But this is great. Your handle for the podcast, like for your like TikTok and like your individual side of stuff, should be the Dudefinity. Dude, it's incredible. It's incredible.
I mean, again, another one that I'm gonna have to edit out because I'm not putting my last name anywhere on. Not anytime soon.
Whatever, man. I'm just saying it should be the Dudefinity.
Maybe. So now that this train has deeply left the tracks.
So, sex.
God, why? Wild, man. All right, let me ask you this.
Uh-huh. You can cut out a lot, by the way.
Nah, well, okay. That whole Celtics thing was good.
No, but the minute and a half wasn't. It can go.
Can it?
Unless you want in there.
So let me ask you this. Getting back to our our discussion on boundaries.
Yeah, I broke all of them right now. Sorry.
So let me ask you this. If you were a guy, say you were, let's turn back the clock however many years.
I'm not a guy.
No wife, no kids. Just a single dude out there trying to say enter into a relationship. What boundaries would you set? And like, how would you present that? Because I feel like now the way things are right now, I know what someone will say to like the whole, my girlfriend and I not hanging out with people from the other sex individually, just one-on-one.
Yeah.
They're gonna go, oh, well, you're insecure or something like that. How do you present that? How, like, the way with the current climate, how do you make that sort of thing work?
Right now, I can tell you, like, you've got a short window. It's kind of like an elevator pitch about yourself. And it's all in that little, like, what are the dating apps? I'm trying to think of a dating app, like Bumble or something. You know what I mean?
Tinder,
Bumble, all those. On your profile, you almost kind of have to say who you are and what you're after, right? Like, bluntly. Like, that's how I would handle it. I'd put it very like, hey, this is what I'd be like, if you're into this, and this, and want to live life this way, cool. Swipe right. If you don't, swipe left. like very blunt. Like I'm a little bit different than most people in that regard because I'm not trying to sell something that isn't real. But it
Mm,
also depends on what age I'm at too. If I'm 25,
mhm.
well, then we got a different sales game going on than we do if I'm 45. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
25-year-old Jordan's looking for something a lot different than 45-year-old Jordan. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I'm just thinking about, the way that I see it. Okay. You know, without I'm not obviously not naming names, but I see a lot of guys that I work with or etc. that some things their partners do some things and I'm just like, how are you okay with that? And then and I think to myself, well, what would I do in that situation?
My
I'm like, I
brother.
don't know how I would
My
stand for
brother. Perfect example. One of my brothers. Perfect example. I
it. Okay.
scratch my head all the time. He knows it. She knows it. I don't care. At the end of the day, here's how it is. You know, if you're not doing something that's respectful of our relationship and growing our love, because in my opinion, I love my wife more now than I did when I was 20. I love my wife more now than when I was 30. I love my wife more now
Mm,
than when I was 35. I love her more than I loved her when I turned 40. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, that love grows. I look at it like a tree that gets bigger every year with deeper roots.
mhm,
And the fact that, like, if you have a partner that is out there doing things that don't grow that love, like for me, every day, my labor of love, I do my job, I provide, I do the things that I need to do for my family. I'm there for them, I'm kind to them. Whatever I can do to just be that person when they need me. And
mhm,
so all of that is making the love bond deeper,
right.
you know? And so if you're doing things and, putting stuff, perfect example, you're putting stuff out on social media that isn't conducive and opens doors, or you're hanging out with single people.
Mhm,
No, I mean, I get what people are going to say and they're going to go, "Oh, that's not woke and that's not progressive and that's not this." But for me, the boundary of where we are in our relationship and what we're trying to build is the most important thing I protect. You have to, because if the tree starts to rot from the inside because you're not tending to it and you're not loving it and you're not helping it grow, man, you're in trouble. You're in a dark place and the relationship's gonna crash and burn. So, to the people that you see do that stuff, the problem is everybody lives their own version of their life,
mhm,
and you wanna give them advice and you wanna help them. I've told my brother I don't agree with some of the stuff that happens, and it's not conducive to a long-term relationship.
mhm,
But people can only do to you what you let them, and he's letting it happen. And so, in my opinion, the way to handle some of those situations, again, going back to being blunt, don't just tuck it away. I think a lot of those people that you see do that tuck stuff away and don't say anything because it's easier.
yeah.
In my opinion, you know, rip the band-aid, have the conversation, be blunt about it. I'm not willing to accept this. This is where I'm at. This is not okay. We need to not do it this way. We need to, I don't like when you spend time with that single friend. I don't want, uh, you know, and you just kind of walk through those. And if there's fallout from it, there's fallout from it. But there's nothing worth having in this life that wasn't worth losing at some point.
That's true. I just wonder, you know, I wonder if because you get things that are like, it's like happy wife, happy life, and that sort of thing. And I don't want one, I think it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
And
No, happy
two,
spouse, happy house.
well,
That's the
right.
rule my wife and
y-
I live by is happy spouse, happy house.
Right. You've got to be doing things to enrich the life of the person that you're with.
Yeah.
And if you're but again, this is one of those things. It's like I I look at and maybe I sound like 400 years old, but I look at some of these things
I
that
didn't want to say anything, but yeah.
Well, I listen to people at work and people I'm friends with and discussing, some of their relationships. And I'll give you an example. And this is from the flip side of that. There's I know a person, the person they were dating had been to jail before, and they had a messy breakup, and this wasn't a particularly good dude. And my thought was, well, you've seen this pattern of behavior from this person because they knew each other beforehand. You've seen this pattern of behavior, but you still decided that you wanted to date this person. Well, what were you expecting to have happen?
It's a
Were you?
narcissistic tendency, man.
Well, it's just I think people,
Think you can fix somebody or make somebody change or
yeah, man, like I just don't get it.
it's
Why are
like my
you
mom.
taking
I'll
that so
call it
hard?
out. I'll call it out. It's like my mom when she got married, she married the guy that was in jail or in
Hmm.
prison
Yeah.
for beating his girlfriend, and then he gets out and he beats her. I mean, at its core level, what did you think was gonna be different? That he was gonna
Mhm.
love you more than he loved the other person?
Well, and that's you get back to this whole boundary idea. It's like if you're saying these are the expectations in our relationship and I expect you to adhere to them, and then the person chooses not to adhere to them, well, that's a breach of the agreement that you two had. And if this is a person who has done the same thing with other people, why would you expect them to do something different with you?
Exactly.
So I wonder how much of this boundary stuff and this difficulty that some people have with setting and maintaining boundaries, is that I don't really understand the why. I guess.
People can only do to you what you allow them to.
Hmm.
And I think some people are built to speak up and some people are just very passive and are like, "Oh, it'll just get better." And then it gets so bad that they just end up the relationship crashes and burns. So I think there in the beginning, I think it's actually better. Like this is going to be a hot take by me,
Hmm.
but I think more conflict in the beginning of the relationship leads to a more healthier relationship longer. And the reason why I say that is because part of the conflict, for example, and when I say conflict, it's more disagreements, it's more,
Hmm.
feeling each other out. How do you handle this? How do you handle that? Learning how to fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like healthy fighting is a great thing for a relationship,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You can have a disagreement without screaming at each other,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
or
I mean,
and I really work on this in my relationship of, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm trying to acknowledge the other person's feelings. I may not understand where you're coming from at all. That may not make a lick of sense to me, but that doesn't make that any less real to you, you
yeah.
know. But at the end
Everybody's
of the
feelings
day,
are their own, man. Like,
yeah.
everybody's feelings are their own, everybody's interpretation. Dude, there's times where, I told my wife, this is a perfect example. We built a house in 21. I wanted a
Mhm.
blue house. Okay. I was voluntold I would like a white house better. So we live in a white house.
Yeah.
There's just certain things that we're going to disagree on in life that are worth it. And there's certain things that aren't. And in my opinion, the biggest boundary you have to be willing to set in order to see your relationship succeed is
Mhm.
the one where when is it enough that you speak up for yourself? You know what I mean? Like because you also don't want to pick fights at every little turn. And so
Mhm.
some people are going to cross little micro boundaries or might piss you off or whatever, but not everything is worth talking about. So you have to decide for
100%.
yourself which boundaries are worth, it's like this. Okay? You throw a pet peeve out. Just throw any pet peeve out.
Jesus. Any pet peeve? Uh, I really don't like not having laundry done. That's if I have a pet, like I'm a big like baskets full, do the laundry, and
Right.
so yeah,
And I would
that's probably
imagine that in one of your relationships in your lifetime that you have been with somebody who does not look at it that way.
oh
And
yeah,
they're
of
not
course.
they're not in a hustle to get the laundry done and to fix it. But is it worth arguing about because you see it differently? No. Is it a boundary that you set for yourself to make sure that the basket's always, like, empty when, when the time comes, if there's a full basket to do laundry? Yeah. But does that boundary that you set for yourself have to be the boundary that applies to your significant other?
Not
No.
necessarily, but and that's
But it's a
and
pet
you bring up
peeve that becomes an argument.
well, and you bring up a good point. There's some things that are just not worth fighting over. If you feel super strongly about something, you really got to pick your battles. Like
Yeah.
anywhere in life, you have to pick your battles. Some
That's
things are
why I
just
think that those battles are more important to have in the beginning.
Mhm,
Because if you have those battles in the beginning, and not necessarily battles, but tough conversations about the
mhm,
differences and where it is, then the expectations are clear. They're laid out. They're understood of what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to not. And if
mhm.
you establish those in the first 3 months of a relationship, I just think you're going to have a lot more success at having a long-term relationship. And some of those hard conversations are going to lead to arguments. I'll tell you right now, when my wife and I got together so I dated her in high school, we broke up, we got back together after 5 years, and we've been together since we were 20. I can
Mhm.
tell you honestly, there was so many fights as 21-year-old Jordan was stubborn, hard-headed, frustrating, drunk, um, not great. A lot of things in life, still feeling it out. But you know what? We got all that out of the way, and our life has been pretty smooth sailing for the most part because we went through those growing pains together. We challenged each other, and you know, conforming to conforming to your boundaries is hard for your significant other, just like you conforming to their boundaries is hard.
Right.
And so understanding those in the beginning so that you're not shooting at a moving target is very important, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's something that comes with age. I also wonder how much of it is at least for there's almost this, and I don't mean to do this whole male female thing, but it almost seems like there are some women setting, especially when I look at like the dating market, there's some women setting boundaries that are so specific that I'm like,
The
I don't know what the hell
80-20
you're
rule,
talking.
buddy. 80% of the women are going after 20% of the
20%
men.
of dudes. Yep.
And
So
the
the
20%
boundaries,
of
they're
women that
they're
dudes
saying,
are
okay,
going after
well,
have
they're saying,
boundaries that are so
this is
high.
my boundary. My boundary
Yep.
is here as far as like, you have to meet all these certain criteria. If we go on a date, these are the expectations that I have, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got guys on the flip side who are doing the exact opposite. That I have no boundaries. Let me get whatever I can get. And I get it. It's a tough world out there. But is but you got to ask, is the juice worth the squeeze? If this is the expectations of this particular individual and they are this high, what do you think life with them is going to be like? You
Well, a
know?
lot of this is a young man's game too, man. If I'm being honest with you, in my opinion,
Mm.
it feels like a lot of that, like online dating and stuff, is more suited, at least from where I sit. If I was a younger version of myself and single and in my 20s, it it would have been great to have that. You know what I mean? But as a 40-year-old man, you know, it, the thought of an online dating, just like, no, no,
Well, and
like,
like I said, it's more just an observation of the
yeah,
landscape
yeah.
more than anything else. I'm not, you should never look past your wife. She's a saint. I don't know how she deals with you, but
Oh god, yeah, ain't that the truth, buddy? There's a lot to deal with too. Um, no, so guys, we went all over the place. We got a little out of bounds here, so to speak.
that's all
Went
right. It's just a
across
conversation.
went across a few different places, talked about the Boston Celtics. Think you're gonna find every week we're gonna end up talking about the Boston Celtics or the New England Patriots. It's just a thing that's
Especially this
gonna
time of
happen.
year. Yes.
Um, we're very passionate about our sports, but if you get nothing else out of what we talked about today, just know that boundaries are confusing. And they can be very confusing from one person to the next. And when I say that, I know you laugh, Sterling, but my
That's
boundary
true.
my boundary can be very different than yours. And so
Mhm.
I'll leave you with this thought. I have a puppy. I'm trying to teach him how to use the bathroom outside. My boundary is don't pee in my house. His boundary is, I gotta pee. That's all he thinks about. So in his mind, there's a confusion. that when he's got to go, he's got to go. So my job is to teach him the boundary of going outside. And so if I don't teach him, what's he going to do? He's going to cross my boundary every time. So look at it as when you're establishing boundaries, you're just setting yourself up for further success, which is also to build off of what we talked about last week, whether those boundaries are built, whether those boundaries are professional, personal, relational with parents, grandparents, friends, just know that by setting those boundaries and your expectations of of the relationship and the situation, it's going to make your life easier in the long run. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for joining Sterling and I. It's been great, Sterling, spending another hour talking about life with you and in these conversations. I wish I really gave it what you had to say, but other than that, I hope you have a wonderful week.
Check us out on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. All of our links are in the description. And
Just
please
check us
feel
out on
free
a Face Talk. We'll be good. Send in your messages, whatever. Face Talk, InstaFace, my Yahoo, whatever. Like just hit us up. We're here. We'll be here. We'll be here for you. Even if you want to tell us to f off, we're good with it.
Hey.
As always, stay a dude. Love everybody. Be good.
I'm the king of my driveway, mowing lines so straight. Got a toolbox full of glory and a mortgage by the bay.